Good morning and welcome to Breakfast with Roger Johnson and Sally Nugent.
Hello, good morning. Our headlines today. The coronavirus vaccination programme steps up a gear in England this week, with the country's largest mass vaccination centre opening this morning.
There are mass vaccinations in Bolton this week too, where the Army will help out with door-to-door testing.
Expect more busy beaches across Britain on Bank Holiday Monday on what could be the hottest day of the year so far.
Good morning, but for some of us it is a cloudy start to the day with mist and fog that should burn back to the North Sea coastline, where in parts it will linger, but for the bulk of the UK it's going to be dry, warm and sunny.
Naomi Osaka is threatened with expulsion from the French Open. That's after the world number 2 was fined more than £10,000 for continuing to avoid speaking to the media.
And we are with Speedo Mick as he takes his trunks on his latest fundraising adventure.
Good morning, it's Monday the 31st of May. Our top story today, the coronavirus vaccination programme in England is being stepped up this week before ministers decide if restrictions can be eased further on June the 21st.
Twickenham Rugby Stadium is opening as the country's largest vaccination centre. Matt Graveling is there for us this morning. And Matt, the focus is on areas where there has been a surge of cases of the Indian variant, isn't it?
That's correct, Sally. Well, this famous stadium has seen hundreds of thousands of people throughout the years, but possibly not for anything quite like this, because as you say, this location is going to be the site for England's largest vaccination centre today, and they're hoping to get as many as 15,000 people vaccinated here today. And the reason is because in surrounding areas like Hounslow, they are seeing a worrying spike in coronavirus cases, especially the worrying Indian variant, which we believe does spread more quickly. So what they're trying to do here today is invite people to come down and have your first vaccination. It's important to say nationally the death rate remains very low, but as the country comes out of lockdown, we are seeing a slight increase now in the cases, something they're trying here very hard to flatten out. Now, we're going to be inside the stadium a little bit later on this morning, but I've had a little walk around and you might be able to see the pictures. There are some tables and some chairs being laid out, and they're expecting many, many people here today. The weather might be nice, but they're saying to you, even if it is and you haven't had your vaccination, come down here because there's also no need to book. Although you can book online if you'd like to save time. If you haven't, just come down and get your jab.
Thanks very much.
Meanwhile, in Bolton, health officials are using the bank holiday and half-term to try to encourage more people to have the vaccine.
A new walk-in centre capable of giving out thousands of doses a day will be open until Sunday. The Army has also been brought in to help with door-to-door testing.
Let's go live to Mairead Smith. She's in Bolton for us this morning. Morning, Mairead. What's the response been like so far there?
Well, this latest centre opened on Saturday, and the people behind it have told me that they only saw around 500 people per day. But let's not forget, we had a glorious bank holiday weekend. The priority may not have been to turn up here for a vaccination, but this site will be able to deal with around 1,000 to 2,000 vaccinations per day, and the people behind it are really keen to make sure that that footfall increases throughout this week at Eden Boys School in Bolton. This is the third mass vaccination walk-in centre for this town, a town that was right at the top of those cases of that Indian variant that caused so much concern in other areas of the country as well. But Bolton had been the highest in terms of cases per 100,000. They've now been overtaken by Blackburn with Darwin in neighbouring Lancashire. So cases just beginning to fall slightly, but still a big concern here in Bolton. And that's why this school will become a mass vaccination site throughout this week.
Mairead, thank you.
More than 430,000 volunteers have carried out nearly 2 million tasks for those who had to stay at home during the coronavirus pandemic.
This included phone calls to the isolated, delivering medicines and stewarding at COVID vaccination sites. Duncan Kennedy has this report.
Britain was already a nation of volunteers, but COVID-19 has supercharged the desire in people to help. A giant task force of unpaid individuals has been mobilised.
Right, so the small strap, for a few seconds.
74,000 people alone have been signed up to support the NHS rollout of its vaccination programme.
Giving something back to the NHS for all the wonderful work that they've been doing through the lockdown and how busy they've been. And it's just been so rewarding to know that you can help somebody that needs your help.
Most volunteering has been channelled through the NHS Volunteer Responders programme, set up at the start of the pandemic. Today's figures show it's had 436,000 recruits who've carried out 1.9 million tasks. That includes 14,500 lifts to and from hospitals and more than 800,000 check-in and chats on people who are lonely or isolated. Hundreds of volunteers will today be at Twickenham Rugby Stadium in London, which is being turned into England's biggest vaccination centre.
There's still about 1 in 10 of our population who are older who haven't been vaccinated and therefore unprotected. So it doesn't really matter which variant it is. They could still get the virus and still become seriously unwell.
A separate report from the London School of Economics has found the volunteers get a real boost to their sense of well-being, equivalent to receiving a bonus of £1,800. Duncan Kennedy, BBC News.
France has tightened restrictions on travel from the UK to try to stop the spread of the India variant of coronavirus. New rules came into force at midnight, meaning British tourists will not be allowed in. France is currently listed as an amber destination by the UK government, which advises against travel there.
Hundreds of Afghans who worked for the British military and its embassy in Kabul will be rapidly relocated, with many expected to be resettled in the UK.
The decision comes amid fears for their safety as international troops prepare to leave the country and the security situation deteriorates. Our defence correspondent Jonathan Beale has more.
Afghan interpreters have put their lives on the line, serving alongside British troops in combat in Helmand until 2014. Though some have already been allowed to resettle in the UK, many were left behind and are now living in real danger, with their old employers soon about to leave for good. The departure of all US, British and NATO forces is underway, and there are growing concerns that those who worked for them will be targeted by the Taliban. So the government's agreed a new programme to bring hundreds more back to Britain for safety. Along with their immediate families, it could mean more than 3,000 Afghans coming here to make their home in the UK.
The Western powers leaving Afghanistan, the threat is increasing and has increased with targeted attacks against Afghans by the Taliban. So we think it's the right thing to do, to stand by these people. They sacrificed a lot to look after us, and now we're going to do the same.
The Defence and Home Secretaries, seen here last year meeting some of the Afghans who've already resettled in the UK, say it's a moral obligation to look after them. But it will also be a huge challenge in the midst of a military withdrawal. The last of the 750 British troops in Kabul are due to leave by September, and it's not yet clear where these Afghan families will be resettled in the UK. Jonathan Beale, BBC News.
3 men have been stabbed on Formby Beach, north of Liverpool. They were taken to hospital by air ambulance for treatment yesterday evening. Merseyside police believe that the attacks are linked, but are keeping an open mind about the motives.
A temporary ban on bailiff-enforced evictions introduced in England at the start of the coronavirus pandemic comes to an end today.
The charities say that 400,000 tenants have already received eviction notices or been told to expect them, as our business correspondent Katie Austin reports.
Rudolph was made redundant last year. £3,000 behind on rent, the fear his landlord could soon try to evict him keeps him awake at night.
It's affecting my health, so if I would have any kind of security, maybe another eviction ban, or maybe from a promise from a landlord to say that I won't evict you till we get a fix for this, I would be actually able to sleep.
Despite the emergency financial support that's been available over the past year, one charity says widespread concerns remain.
We've found that 1 million households are worried about being evicted over the coming 3 months after the ban comes to an end. We've seen that some households are a lot more worried than others. So BME renters, families with children, those on low incomes, and those who have seen an income fall during the pandemic.
Landlords warn the eviction ban has caused delays removing tenants with pre-existing problems, but they say they've tried to help people affected by the pandemic. Sue is letting a family gradually pay back thousands they couldn't afford in the first lockdown, which affects her too.
When they can't pay their rent, I have to pay the mortgage on that property, which is part and parcel of the risk of being a landlady, but also their rent not only pays the mortgage, but it gives me surplus, and that's my income.
The government says tenants will continue to be supported, including with longer than usual notice periods. Housing and landlords groups both want more done to stop COVID-related rent debts putting tenancies in doubt. Katie Austin, BBC News.
Now, climbing Mount Everest is a huge achievement for anyone, but a former teacher is returning from the challenge with the extra bragging rights.
Yeah, Sang Ying Hung has just become the fastest woman to reach the top. The 45-year-old, who's from Hong Kong, did it in just under 26 hours. Doesn't say where she started from, I presume from the final camp before the top, I guess, but she beat the previous record by half a day. It's a terrific achievement.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.